Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Bengal Tiger podcast. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again in his on-three gear is Shea Dixon. Shea, how are you doing on this Friday
Yours is on
morning?
the way. I'm doing
Mine
well.
is on
You're
the
on
way.
3 years on me, Maddie. Don't worry. Don't worry.
Yeah, so we will get into this New Mexico game. Obviously, LSU comes in as a 31-point favorite, and there's not an expectation that they get a scare here from New Mexico. However, this is a New Mexico team that on paper has some things that interest me going into it that I think will test LSU. But overall, going into this game, I watched the first half against Boise State where they went down pretty quickly, and then where they kept it kind of close. I think it was 10-0, and then they had a blocked punt that was returned for a touchdown. They ended up losing that Boise State game 31-14. And New Mexico is now 2-1 on the season with the win over UTEP coming last week. So overall, I think we can more so talk about what we're expecting to see and what we want to see from LSU, obviously, than how they match up with New Mexico. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I thought one of my biggest things. I mean, we don't know everything about New Mexico like we do a lot of these other teams. So we've kind of just been reading about them and getting a feel for what Kelly says. But the for the gambling people probably who care about this, keep an eye on that over under the spread. Kelly seemed convinced that New Mexico's defense is not one that she's go out and drop 50 points on. I don't know what his stat was, but he said that across the past 2 years, nobody scored more than 30 something points on them. So there was a sense that LSU could end up in that range. Like, I think people probably just look at this game, Maddie B, and are like, oh, LSU should win 49-7 or whatever. And Kelly said, hey, look, this defense is actually going to be a little bit better than people probably think they are.
Yeah, I was actually looking at some advanced stats. I mean, it's public stats, but I was looking at the EPA for New Mexico as where they rank in the country, and offensively, New Mexico ranks 130th in EPA per play. So obviously very, very bad. 127th in the run game, 124th in the pass game. This is out of 131 teams for those who don't know. But defensively, in their three games against Maine, Boise, and UTEP, and I've seen UTEP, they're not very good. And I watched the Boise game, and Boise's not even that good this year. But regardless, with those three games, they are second in the country against the pass in pass EPA. And I know it's not a strong sample size when you get those three teams, but still, they've at least had success in that front. They're holding their opposing quarterbacks to, I believe, 48% passing on the year. So that's at least something we can look at going into this game. Be like, all right, well, let's see Jaden Daniels progress in those areas that we talked about. And that might be even getting too far ahead for this podcast, but Jaden Daniels going against a defense that has had success against the pass, albeit against lesser competition. That's something I'm interested in. And even in the run game against the run, they're 75th in the country, which isn't terrible. And then again, on a per play basis, they're top 10 again against the bad competition that they've played. But still, it's something I think we can at least look forward to seeing. LSU's offense against New Mexico's defense early on, I think, is an interesting point.
Yeah, and no Keyshawn Boutte this weekend. Brian Kelly talked about that on Thursday night after practice. He said, hey, look, you won't see him out there. Keyshawn actually his girlfriend gave birth to their first child Thursday night. Keyshawn shared some photos of all that to social media if you want to check it out. But Kelly said he excused him, gave him the weekend off. He's going to be there with family. So a chance for us to see the LSU offense sans Boutte, which I think a lot of people probably would have liked to see him kind of get going in a game like this, at least get
Yeah.
into a little bit more of a rhythm with Jaden Daniels. But that's all good. Moving on. He'll be available next week when they go to Auburn, which is obviously a lot more important. When I look at this one, Maddie B, and you talk about New Mexico's defense being a test and certainly pass wise, like I'd like to see them look good in this game. I'd like to see Jack Besh get involved in this game. That was something Kelly talked about this week, and everyone on the boards talked about. What was your takeaway from whether it was I think Kelly talked about it Wednesday on the SEC teleconference, and then
Yeah.
kind of mentioned it again Thursday. It seems to me that they're going to make an emphasis to get him the football because a year ago. We've talked about this. He led did he lead LSU in catches or yards at Breakout
Receptions, yeah,
after
receptions.
receptions? Okay, catches. He had one catch in the first game, but one catch in the second game, no targets in the third game, and now we're here in week 4. So with Boutte off the field, I'd have to think Besh is going to start to get into kind of more of a role this week.
Yeah, I mean, he has to. At some point, he's too talented, I think, to keep off the field. And I know this is a very talented receiver room, but with Boutte out, I would expect Besh to get a significant amount. And what makes it difficult is that he and Neighbors often play, the same position in that slot role. But with Boutte out, maybe we see one of them bounce outside on a couple snaps. Maybe we see a little bit more creativity as far as where they line up. That's what I'm interested in to see. But I wrote about it after the Florida State game that they needed Jack Besh to get more involved, and I said that knowing that there were limitations to the passing game with at the time the offensive line being a huge question mark, which I still think it is a question mark, but with the offensive line being a question, and then Jaden Daniels' ability to throw the ball to being in question as well. I don't think that's as much as a question going into game 4. I think Jaden Daniels is continuing to get more comfortable and to um, find the targets, although obviously we talked about it at length after the game that he missed some guys against Mississippi State. If Jack Besh is out there, I would like to see him targeted a few times. At least some of those throws that go to Mason Taylor, if they could go to Jack Besh, I'd be very happy. So I wrote about that after the Florida State game, and I still maintain he is a weapon that I think they need to start getting more involved here moving forward. You kind of we talked about Keyshawn. Anything else on the injury front that we need to talk about here? Seven Banks is supposed to be back and good to go. Who else am I missing here?
Well, and we've heard Quincy Wiggins should be
Yeah.
back, right? That, or at least maybe into more of a role beyond. They talked about putting him on special teams last week. I'm not even sure if he got out there. So this
Mhm.
might be the game where we start to see a little bit more of him. Um, Beyond Banks, I mean, it seems that they're healthy. Mason Smith had his ACL surgery this week, so he's on the road to recovery there. Obviously, won't be back this season. But it seems like everybody else that like Brian Kelly never mentioned anybody this week as being banged up. Anybody who might have gotten banged up in the last games, Jay Ward. I think people had mentioned others were fine and practicing all week. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think the injury bug beyond Mason Smith has bitten them much here. So they should be pretty healthy going into this one. And I'm interested to see Seven Banks if he does get out there, the Ohio State transfer who had hip surgery a year ago and missed time at Ohio State, has now missed a few games here. So I think fans are eagerly awaiting his debut to see if he can just kind of help out in the rotation at corner.
Yeah, the one thing before we move on to maybe like breakout candidates, when talking about Seven Banks, I don't remember what player it was. Oh man, it's gonna annoy me. I don't think it was Jarek Bernard. But one of the players we talked to a week ago, and I don't even think it was this past session here. They talked about Seven Banks and getting him back, and they said they feel like they haven't even seen him at 100% yet to this point. Like he was like they're excited to see him at 100%, but to this point, it's just been him getting back, getting acclimated, getting to that point where he can play and go all out. So Joe Fuchsia also will not be playing in this game. They expect to have him back for Auburn. So that'll be a whole different storyline we'll have to watch for is how much he plays, where he fits in moving forward. So, but I think that covers pretty much everybody. Xavier Hill, we know he's back. I don't expect him to be in that 8-man rotation too much, but other than that, I think that covers everybody. So, um, let's see. I mean, we talked a little bit offensively. What we're looking forward to against New Mexico. Defensively, is there anything you want to see, or is it just kind of keep it up, just keep doing what you're doing at this point?
I'm curious to see what this New Mexico offense looks like. Like they compared it. I was reading Phil Steele before the year, and they said it could be kind of similar to Coastal Carolina's offense, which is kind of
Yeah, I could see that.
a triple option look where uh, you've got to be smart on D. I think it's a lot like playing in Mississippi State. Brian Kelly talked about that, just like knowing your assignments, being in the right spot, tackling well. Um, let's see, return their quarterback. So Yeah, they're not going to light the world on fire. I mean, this is a team that went 3-9 a year ago. Let's be real. They're not going to
Yeah.
light the
Quarterback
world on fire on offense, but
Yeah,
it'll be interesting to
quarterback is
watch that offense.
Miles Kendrick has started all 3 games, played all of that, was formerly at Kansas for 3 years. He's completed
He got
56%
out while
passes.
the getting's good at Kansas right now. Why are you rolling on them?
I know, I know. Well, I guess they found their quarterback. They didn't need him, but he is
That's right.
mobile. He ran around against Boise State a bit. He didn't look like he was a Jaden Daniels level athlete, but he did move around quite a bit. So, you know, keeping him under wraps will be interesting. But at the end of the day, I don't have huge expectations of Miles Kendrick going into this game. So, but we've seen several times where a team that is a 30-point favorite. Heck, we saw Auburn against San Jose State last week where they were a 23-point favorite, mess around and barely beat San Jose State. And so there are examples out there. I mean, Arkansas against Missouri State last week struggled. We've seen plenty of teams struggle with teams of a G5 caliber, even low G5 caliber. So that's the big thing. In Southern, they got off to a fast start. Mississippi State was back to a slow start. And Florida State, it was obviously a slow start. So, what are we getting from LSU in the first quarter here is probably the biggest storyline, because if we leave the first quarter and it's 7-3 LSU, and it hasn't been pretty, like if Jaden Daniels hasn't thrown the ball as well as we wanted to, or they're not running the ball as well as we think they should, then it's like, okay, this is still a problem to where they're not coming out the gates hot. They're not coming out of the gates looking to put this team away, which is a concern. But um, I think that's probably my biggest thing and that's probably my only big talking point here is how they come out in the first quarter.
Yeah, I want to see. I'd like to see, everybody would like to see them start fast. I mean, that's just what you got to do in a game like this. Southern was the blueprint for it. I mean, they scored in all three phases in the first quarter. Um, yeah,
Well,
I mean, I
the thing
can't.
is, and this is why, as much as I want to give them credit for coming out fast against Southern, is Southern fumbles the opening kickoff, so they start the ball at like their 10, so it's easy touchdown. Then the pick six, and there was a lot of things Southern handed them in
No
that
doubt.
game. So now I want to see if New Mexico plays a clean game, does not turn the ball over, and they punt and they force LSU to go 80 yards, on the first drive of the game. Then I want to see LSU go 80 yards on the first drive of the game and sustain a drive, throw the ball well, and the offensive line obviously being a talking point. They'll have the same offensive line LSU will in this game as they did in the Mississippi State game, which will be interesting. Where you go Campbell, Dellinger, Turner, Frazier, and Jones as your offensive line, even with the return of Anthony Bradford, who I think will get significant snaps. Still, that's all we want to see in the first quarter is if New Mexico doesn't shoot itself in the foot, can you still be a dominant team?
Yeah, as you noted, they did three different O line starting combinations the first three games. They're sticking with the one they did in week 3 now to week 4, which is two true freshmen at the offensive tackle spot. So that was some notable news to come out of the week. Before we get into players, I want to ask you about this because we're talking about starting fast. What's your opinion on Brian Kelly's strategy, which he's implemented now so far this season, and he said I've done in the past, of when he wins the toss, he takes the football. So, and most teams, if New Mexico wins the toss, they'll probably defer. So more often than not, we're going to watch LSU games where they get the ball first, whether it's by
Yeah.
their choice or by the other team's choice. Your thoughts here? I know there's analytics behind this, I'm sure, but Brian Kelly says the
The
numbers
only
tell me
thing,
that we want to go down and score first.
yeah, that it's so unique because
Very. Not many people do this.
even offensive head coaches do not take the ball to start the game. Like it's not precedented at all. So yeah, and you mentioned it. Brian Kelly's whole approach when asked about it, I think either before week 1 or after week 1, was basically like, you look at the numbers and the team who scores first wins the game, X amount of time, and the likelihood of winning the game goes up X amount of times, X amount. So I'm here like, okay, that makes sense. Like on paper, when you just say, hey, if we score first, we have a better chance of winning the game. Yes, but there's a reason why people don't take the ball first. It's because you you hope you can get a stop and then get a shorter field. If you can force only one first down or get a 3 and out, you get the ball in like the 40 or the 30 instead of the 20. But also to start the second half in a close game, that matters. If it's 10-10 at halftime against Auburn next week and Auburn gets the ball first, then you're starting a new game basically where Auburn gets the ball first. So, I never thought it was a big deal, and I do think it might be, I don't want to make a big mountain out of a molehill, so to speak, but it is interesting. I haven't really heard that very often. Maybe from like high school coaches I've talked to, maybe I've seen that, but I wasn't expecting that. Maybe I missed that when he was at Notre Dame. Maybe it just went right over my head, but that is unique to say the
We
least.
won't go. We won't go too deep down the analytics well. There, we're going to end up talking about no punting ever and going for it on every fourth. Yeah, so we'll skip that. Interesting approach. I'm for the try to score right before halftime and sandwich halftime in between another possession. Right. So like
Yeah.
I would defer to. So
Yeah, well, that's another thing is going into half, you can control the clock. You can control who gets the possession, last possession of the half, usually to a degree, and then if you're getting the ball the next half, you know what you have to do. So it's an interesting point though. But let's
shouldn't
talk.
matter this weekend. So
It
let's
won't
we'll
matter.
see
It
if it
won't matter.
matters down the line.
Won't matter. Won't matter. But all right, breakout candidates. Shay, you want to do one or let's do two each. Let's do
Okay,
two each.
one.
Let's
You
go.
want to do one on each side of the ball?
Yes, one on each side of the ball.
Okay, I'll go with. Hmm. I don't do my homework for the. I like this segment to
Yeah,
be off the
I
cuff.
honestly I didn't either.
I need
But
this segment to be off the cuff. Well, we've already talked about Chip, but I don't even know if I'm confident that that'll be a breakout.
yeah, I don't think so either.
I think Brian Thomas has a big day.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah, I was actually thinking
I
about him.
think, and when I asked Brian Kelly about him, he kind of made it sound like he's pretty measured in how he talks about a lot of these guys. Almost like when he gets asked about him, if he has to send a message, he does. And with Thomas, it was kind of like he's understanding now that practice week is like grind it out, win your spots, win your reps. And he said he's turned that corner and has kind of really grasped that. And now that's led to him playing more and more. I think just so quietly, like you look at their top four pass catchers, like everyone's talking about Butte the first few weeks. Everyone's talking about Neighbors because he punts, he comes back to big games. Everybody's talking about Besh not being. Everyone's talking about Mason Taylor as a true freshman kind of eating up carries. Everyone's saying, Dre didn't even get any looks in the Southern game, but he scored 2 touchdowns for you to kind of save the day at Florida State at the end. No one's talking about Brian Thomas, and he's caught pretty much everything that's been thrown at him. He's scored. His stats look pretty much just like the rest of them. And without Butte out there, I think he gets a little bit more runs. So put me down for Brian Thomas. I just think he's such a mismatch, too. Like, his length and his physicality is just something different than anybody else in that room has. I'm such a Brian Thomas fan. There was a time where he was the number 2 or 3 receiver in the country coming out of high school. Like, let me fact check real here. It's quick here and see where he ended up. Um,
Definitely the most underrated receiver on this team by far.
he left high school as a top 10 receiver. So talking about a dude who's been this way since Walker High. He was very dominant as a junior. He came on, had a really nice senior year. I think it's just his personality that he's quiet. Even signing day for him was like the quietest LSU Bama battle you've ever heard of. Like he just didn't make much out of it. So, yeah, I like. I'll start offense. Let's go offense, offense, defense, defense. I'll
Yeah.
start offense. I like Brian Thomas.
I I don't okay, this is like he's a breakout candidate, but he's also someone I'm just really interested in watching moving forward. It's Mason Taylor because he had one reception last game, I believe, on 6 targets, if I'm not mistaken. And then you rewatch the game, and I didn't love his run blocking, which I did write a whole story about in the run game. I just need to see Mason Taylor live up to the hype to a degree. And I know it's unfair to him because he didn't set this hype for himself. He didn't come out the gates being like, I am the next Brock Bowers. I am the best tight end Brian Kelly's ever had. No, Brian Kelly said all that. Brian Kelly
Yeah, I
set
don't
these
know what is up that.
expectations. And so obviously this is definitely unfair to him, but he is playing a ton. He is on the field I didn't chart snaps, but if I had
Oh,
to
his
bet him
snap
on,
share is 90%. I
yeah,
mean,
I was
he's out
about to say
there.
it's 85-90%. He is on the field every play seemingly. And so with that being the case, you know, I want him to develop into that weapon that I'm not saying not that level of weapon, not Brock Bowers, but to a weapon that is reliable and not someone who is only catching one pass a game or two passes and then, struggling in the run game at times. I just want to see him develop and see him. And I think this could be a game where he makes a few catches and could potentially get on the board. I don't think he has a touchdown. He doesn't have a touchdown this year, right? So, um, maybe gets on the board and goes from there.
All right. I don't mind it. True freshman pick. Defense, I'll go Savion Jones at D end. And I
I like it.
feel like I'm close to being able to make the case that Savion has been as good, if not better at times, than the starter at the position, Ali Gay. And I don't think that means like benching Ali Gay at all. He's a veteran, he's a team captain, he's a handful for offensive linemen to deal with.
Yeah.
And maybe once you deal with a little bit of Ali Gay and all of a sudden Savion Jones comes in as a backup, it's like, geez, this is a lot for an offensive tackle to have to handle. So I just feel like Jones has been really disruptive. He's talked about how he's this offseason, he kind of like really settled in and made the jump from, St. James and being it's a high level high school football in Louisiana, but making that jump to SEC and college football. And he got last year as a true freshman. His feet wet a little, but not, as much run as he gets now. I think he's got great size. I think he fits that hand in the dirt D end role. He can handle that well, whether I thought kind of even in the offseason, we saw them standing him up some, like BJ Ojolari, putting his hand in the dirt. I think he could do either. Natural athlete. I could see him having a big game this weekend, just because I think they'll have a healthy rotation on the D line, and I think he's sort of hitting the stride where he's playing really good football right now. So Ali Gay might have the better stats at the end of the game. I don't know, but I do like his backup, and I think the more Savion plays, the better you feel about a D line that lost Mason Smith because you kind of start to see other pieces emerge here as playmakers.
I could definitely argue Savion Jones is a better pure pass rusher than Ali Gay. I don't. I'd have to really watch that again because I think it'd be close. But Ali Gay is, obviously a big body.
Well, and Ali Gay's a fifth year senior and Savion's a sophomore. So
Oh no, no, for sure. Yeah, I
even to be
definitely would.
having the argument is good for Savion.
Yeah, no, 100%. So that's a good one. I've gone I've gone back and forth here. I don't 100% know who I want to take here. I think give me a
Are you going to go
give me a
weeks?
linebacker. Give me a linebacker. I'm not gonna
Are you
take
going
Weeks.
weeks?
I'm not going
Oh,
Weeks. I'm not going Weeks. I'm gonna stick with Penn. I'm gonna stick with Penn. I think Penn has a good game.
where?
Obviously Baskerville has got a lot of talk. I think Jones is getting a little bit lost in the shuffle at this
Okay,
point.
so yeah, where are you at right there? Because those are your starters, Jones and Penn. You picked a starter and Penn.
Yes.
It just seems like if you're like taking the temperature of the fan base, they're convinced that the backups are all better than the starters are.
Here's the
Like, where
thing.
you?
I believe Baskerville in his role is the best linebacker as far as when you put him in a dime package, or even when you put him in the nickel a couple times against the pass. I think he's the best at pass coverage, which is obviously a huge
Oh, I
deal
agree.
in this day and age where you're playing the Mississippi States, you're playing the quarterbacks that they're going to be playing in the SEC. It's a huge deal. So I don't have a problem with it with people saying he should start. I think asking Harold Perkins to start is just a bridge too far, just a little bit too far, a little bit too anxious at this moment to see him on the field at all times. Because in what the role he's doing,
It's
it's not a
easy.
it's not a middle linebacker role. It's not a processing role to me. It's every highlight you've seen of Harold Perkins. I mean, obviously there have been a couple run stops that have really impressed me. I'm not saying he can't do it, but he's been at Jack at times, right? He's been the sack he had against Will Rogers where he was lined up behind the nose and he slipped his way in against a running back and broke in for a tackle. Those aren't the same plays that Penn and Jones are being asked to make. So I don't like the comparison of those two or those groups against each other. So I
I'm with
think
you.
Penn is the best or is still a very, very good run stopper and a good linebacker. I like him to have a good game this week. I think he racks up the tackles. Jones, I am a little bit wary of. Baskerville, I need to see a little bit more of. But Weeks, I thought you've mentioned him before. I think Weeks has
I
been a
like Weeks,
surprise.
man. I think he puts his head in there for a
He
sophomore who
does.
didn't play a lot at Virginia a year ago. You want to talk about a guy who will run stop or whatever you need. It seems like he'll get the gritty part of it done.
Yeah,
Physical kid. Uh,
this
he's
definitely.
better than I thought he would be. I didn't think he'd be playing at all this year. And he plays every game. So I was
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah.
Sorry,
It's definitely
Weeks.
not a linebacker room where you go into it and you're like, oh, they have these two guys and you're set, but
No.
they have some wiggle room. They have some versatility. And I think that's actually a good thing for Matt House's defense because of the different offenses that they're going to play throughout the year. Auburn will run the ball 1,000 times, Mississippi State
Yeah.
threw the ball 1,000 times. And so you kind of go from there. To have that versatility is a really good thing. So yeah, give me Greg Penn, double-digit tackles, book it.
Oh, I thought you were going Weeks there. Man, shout out to Weeks. Let's see if he can have a big game. I like our
Yeah,
picks there. I like
I
our
like him too.
picks.
I like him. All
Man, let me
right.
think. All right, we'll have to rehash this. I'm not fully confident Brian Thomas has the best stats at the end of the day, but I do think he has a good game.
Okay.
Is LSU going to score more than 40 points?
No.
Brian Kelly says nobody scores more than 40 points in New Mexico. So
If they score 40 points, okay, if they block a punt, or if they return a punt,
Matty B got that special teams prowess predicted right here,
if that happens,
despite
then
all
yes,
their failures.
they'll break 40. I just want to see who returns punts. Honestly, is it going to
You don't think
be
it's going to be Greg
is it
Clayton
going to be
again?
Greg Clayton? I
They've
mean,
run him out
again,
there every
this
game
is the
since
same
the first
argument. This
game.
is the same argument I had for the Southern game. Is if you're gonna play Malik Neighbors, or if you're gonna play somebody else back there, this is the game to do it. You don't wait until Alabama comes here to do it. So, I think they try somebody else there. Maybe not the whole time, but maybe in the third or fourth quarter they throw Malik out there, throw Seven Banks out there, who was returning punts during the offseason. Who knows? Who knows?
I would hope they don't put a kid that's in 7 who hadn't played in a year out there.
He was returning punts during the fall. We saw him.
Yeah, but Gregory Clayton never was returning punts during the. Brian Kelly said he
Sage
was, but when we
Ryan.
were at practice, we never saw it. Sage
Yeah, I
Ryan.
know. Who
I
knows?
don't know. I'd go back to Malik, but what do I know? I've never
Yeah,
coached
me.
special teams.
Same. All right. One
I've
thing you're
never coached any
watching.
position, if you're
One big
wondering.
thing. One big thing you're watching in this game. We've hit on a lot.
Start fast. I just want to see them. They need to be up a good bit by halftime. That Southern, let's throw out. I mean, New Mexico at least is an FBS squad that
Yeah, this isn't
is
the
better
same
than
caliber.
Southern,
Yeah, they're better than
but they're
Southern,
not
significantly.
great. But they're better than Southern.
Yes.
So yeah, in the two games you've had where you actually played like teams that are on your level, you were dead in the first half both games. So I want to see some real production in the first half. Start fast. Let's go. I want to see it. Prove it to me.
I'm not gonna say Garrett Nussmeier because that would be hilarious, but
Talking about some backup quarterbacks.
but hey, Kelly was asked about Garrett Nussmeier, and he basically repeated what we said on this podcast. So, Brian Kelly listens to the pod. Good for him.
Well, and
I'm gonna.
Jaden went wire to wire against State, and they were up by
Okay, yeah,
a
but
lot of points
that's
at the
state.
end.
That's state. That's state.
All right.
That's state. I'm gonna be looking for. Give me something
What would your
underrated.
reaction be, Matty B, if they put Jaden Daniels on the bench and they're up 20 something and Walker Howard went in before Garrett Nussmeier?
I'd be a little concerned because I think the plan is to still redshirt Walker Howard, and so you have just. I don't want to say you've shot Garrett Nussmeier's confidence, but if knock on wood, if anything happened to Jaden, then you'd be like, okay, who are we going to at this point? Are we burning Walker's red shirt? Like, what are we doing here at the quarterback position moving forward? And then that would just open up big can of worms. Ideally, I still think the coaching staff wants it to be a very, very simple succession of Jaden Daniels, and then if anything happened to Jaden where he wasn't in, you just throw Nussmeier in and you redshirt Walker, and you just keep it very, very simple.
That's the plan.
But so if Walker went in there, then we would have a very interesting shakeup here of where the tiers are, where the ladder is at this point. So, um, there's a few places I could go here.
Just
I
go
was
with
gonna
your
go.
gut. What are you trying to see?
All right, the first one was secondary. I'll go secondary here because while
All
I
right.
think it was very good against Mississippi State. There were times where Colby Richardson struggled in 1-on-ones. I think he had Ra Thomas a couple times, which Ra Thomas is very good. But
Dude is a beast.
yeah, and so I don't want to put all the blame on him or on Colby because he was asked to do a lot in that situation. But Colby is someone I want to see in those 1-on-ones, how he holds up here. And then just as a secondary, if they can force some turnovers, that would be a huge luxury for LSU. And that would help them put this game away relatively quickly. I honestly think, real quick, shout out, I think Mekhi Gardner's been great this year. Like,
Mm-hmm.
flat out. I know in the Florida State game, there were some throws where Jordan Travis made that were on Mekhi Gardner, and Mekhi Gardner got burnt on the double move or on the reverse pass, sure. But I would say 90% of the time when I'm watching Mekhi Gardner in coverage, he's holding up great. So shout out him. And yeah, we'll see how the rest of the secondary does. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. Seeing there's something under the radar, kind of. We already talked about the offensive line. The offensive line, seeing how they do and if they can shove them around. But yeah, that's gonna be an interesting one. All right. I mean, as far as predictions go, I guess we could just. Do you think they cover 31-point spread? I don't even know what the spread's at anymore. I haven't published my story yet. Final lines.
Let's
For
Okay, you
those
can go
listening,
first.
check out
I'll tell you.
final
I'll
lines when
tell
it
you what
comes
the
out.
spread is. Hold on.
Okay. I'm pretty. It
Oh,
was.
you want it? You want to hear about a bad beat? I was going to put this into your threads there on the board while I look this up. You want to
Yeah,
hear about it?
I gotta charge back up the thread. I got to post all my
People
bets
like
in it
that.
for this week.
I randomly threw $2 on the final score of the Thursday night football game being 23-17, which would have hit for 100 and something dollars had they not lateraled it backwards a bunch of times at the end of the game into the end zone, which gave the Browns another touchdown. And then it was no longer 23-17.
Oh my gosh! You bet two
That was
dollars
an
on 23
L.
to 17 final score,
Yeah,
and then that
it was the
happened.
only bet I did.
That is sick. Oh
Are
my
we
gosh.
going? What was that? Plus 6,500 L. But that's what you get for betting final score lines like randomly just because I was bored sitting there before the
Oh
game.
my god. That would have won
Okay.
$130
Yeah.
off a $2 bet.
Thanks, Matthew, for that math. I know it.
Oh
Yes,
my
that's correct.
god.
Oh, let's see.
Wow.
One game. Yeah, I'll be done for the weekend. Take my
Man,
$2 and
you
leave.
could have quit your job if you hit that.
That's right.
Oof.
I would have been back on retirement.
Oof. Oh
Okay,
my
I'm
gosh. Okay, well there you go.
scrolling through.
It was 29.5. It opened around 29.5, or it
It's at
opened at
31 right now. LSU's favored by 31 with an over and under of 45. So
very low over under there.
very,
That's
very low over under. Again, because people are not expecting LSU to score more than
and
30
also
something points.
New Mexico should not score the ball. New Mexico should
Probably
not
not.
have A, they shouldn't break 10, but B, they shouldn't score over a touchdown. Or they shouldn't score more than one touchdown. That's what I'll say. It could be a touchdown field goal, but no more than 10 points, no more than a touchdown for New Mexico in this game. Anything more, and I'm irked. Irked, I say.
So this would be like,
Like
I
38-7.
get it, 38-7 would be the prediction.
Yeah. That's the
Vegas
book's
prediction.
prediction. Yeah.
I'll see. Yeah, I'm cool with that range. I do think New Mexico probably scores. Like that's a long game to just never score. Southern scored twice, so
Yeah, but Nussmeyer
I
handed
don't need to
them
rehash
freaking
how that
points.
happened. But yeah, I could see. I'll go.
You know what?
I'll go 35-6.
Where's my phone? Let's see if they have it available yet. You said 35-6?
Yeah, but then I predicted they'd get a touchdown. 35-7,
Well, maybe they went for two for pride's sake and
just to try it.
just to try it. Yeah, I think that's a good range. Don't bind me to this because we'll have our predictions piece out this evening. But yeah, I'd say something like a Yeah, 31-6, 31-7, something along those lines. Not
Man,
too
and we're hitting the under still at 45, comfortably on the under.
Yes. Dang, I was trying to find if they had a first
Fade
half.
us. LSU's about to drop 50 on these dudes.
I wouldn't be
I
shocked.
don't
I
know.
would
I get the feeling that this could be a low scoring game. I kind of just think LSU, you're about to hit SEC play galore. I almost
Yeah, they're
feel like
not.
LSU's going to just want to get out of this one. It's like, hey, let's
Daniels will
run the
be out of the
football a
game.
bit. Let's, yeah.
Daniels will be out of the game if they're up 4 scores going into the second half. I don't think he plays.
Do you take John Emery? We're wrapping up here. Do you like
Yeah, I know. We're
John
rambling.
Emery's your best running back? You were, in theory and by talent, I guess. Now he hasn't played in a year plus. Given he hasn't played that long, like, should you be playing John Emery in a blowout? Like, I know you bench your starters because you don't want them to get hurt, and you're not disrespecting the other team when they're putting their backups in, they're getting blown out, you're putting yours in. But like, are you going to just run like Josh Williams and them at the end of this game, or
That's a
do
good
you say,
question
hey,
because the
look, we actually need to play Emery. He needs touches. Like, put him out there. Like, it might not be the first team O line. It might not be Jaden Daniels. It might be Chris Hilton and Kyron Lacey and Bash at receiver or whomever. But
yeah.
do
I
you
mean,
play John Emery in a blowout?
I would play him for another series or two. I wouldn't play him like the whole game, but if Daniels goes one series into the third quarter and then um you put in the backups, and then I could see Emery staying on the field for another series or two, and then you go from there. Because it's not like you have 6 backs you're trying to feed here. You have 4, and
Yeah. I just
multiple
think any reps he gets is going to help, right? If he's a
for sure,
year plus removed from football, he's going to need to shake off rust.
for
I'm
sure.
eager. I almost picked him for one of my guys to watch. I'm eager to see him now that he's got one game under his belt. And I mean, Kelly even talked about it. He said before the game, John Emery was so nervous. He was like, because man, it's like it's finally here. I haven't been able to play in 15 games. And then he said after the game, even though the final stat line didn't look like a John Emery stat line, I think he ran for like 30 some yards. Kelly said he was elated because he was like, oh my God, it was real. I was finally back out there. I think now he's got that behind him. Like, I could see him having a big game this weekend.
Yeah, me too. Trying to think if there's anything else here. No, but I don't think so. I think we hit
Touched
on
on it
everything
all.
pretty much. Yeah, we've rambled for a bit at the end, but that's all right.
6:30 SEC Network Plus, ESPN Plus, whatever they call it these days, streaming,
ST Network Plus. There we go.
which would
All
really be, I
right.
guess, about 6:39 if you're running late.
Yep. Um, Check out the final line story that I will have up here soon. Once this is live and to the public, we will start live streaming these at some point. So stay tuned for that. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter and all those socials. Or you could, I think you can press the bell notification on YouTube if you want to be notified for when we post a video or when we go live. That would help as well. But yeah, go
And we
ahead,
hit
Shay.
1,000 subscribers on YouTube, right? Did we talk about that on the pod
We
already?
we didn't. We didn't. I think last time
Oh, got the Bengal Tiger
we
Founders
got the
Club hat.
hat on.
It's in.
Um, I
I
don't
still
think
don't
we
have
talked.
one, so whatever.
I don't know how you don't
It'll come.
have one.
I signed up for it. It'll come.
We're at 1,010 subs right
Yeah.
now.
Okay.
So
Keep following us on YouTube and Spotify or whatever y'all do.
yep, yep. Great day. Great day over here at Bengal Tiger. As we continue to start this thing up, man, we're still in our first month, which is crazy because it feels like we've been here for a while already. So, all right, that's all we have for y'all today. We hope y'all enjoyed it. Again, if you are not a subscriber to the Bengal Tiger, become one and you get one of these hats, these nifty hats.
Yeah, it's
Very
a
nice
dollar for a
quality,
year and you get the hat included. So basically, if you want the hat, pay $1 for it and you get a whole year VIP membership to
right?
On3. Why would you do that?
Right. So,
That's the
yeah, there
selling
you go.
point.
Selling point. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. But yeah, we thank y'all for joining us. Again, subscribe to the YouTube, leave a like, follow, comment, share, all that stuff. Leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to the podcast. If you listen on Spotify, that's going up as well. The 5-star ratings that we're getting, we appreciate those on Apple as well. So thank y'all for joining us. You can follow us on Twitter at Shea Dixon at Matthew Bruni _. But yeah, we will talk to y'all later.